Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for what is going to be a very informative chat with educator and author Brad Weinstein. My name is Melody McAllister, and if this is your first time joining us tonight, or you join us every chance you get, I want to thank you. And you can catch this live broadcast every Wednesday from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can catch the replay on these same channels. I want to especially thank Alice Keeler for giving us her platform for these broadcasts. Tonight, Brad Weinstein will be discussing his book that he co-authored, Hacking School Discipline, 9 Ways to Create a Culture of Empathy and Responsibility Using Restorative Justice. Reading this book has helped me reflect on my own practices as an educator and parent. This book is definitely one to pick up this summer and read through by yourself or in a study. In practice, these ideas can help create a stronger school community bond where all members feel validated, in which students, teachers, and parents play an important role. Brad, it is such an honor to have you here for this book chat tonight. How are you doing? And can you tell us a little bit about your background?
I am living the dream. I am doing great. I have three small kids, 8, 5, and 3, who are now home all day, every day, off of school. So my and I work at home a lot, so that's definitely something quite fun right now going on in my life. I'm just curious, Melody, what do you have as a bookmark in my book? I'm very curious as to what you're using as a bookmark.
I feel like I'm just doing everything wrong. This is just a note of all the scribbles, and I just put it in there like for one of my favorite chapters. But I read it's on like repair the harm. But anyway, let's not get off topic. It's just a little. I have notes all over the place. I'm a mess.
Okay, cool. Because I usually do the folding of the bookmark like a monster. So I was just curious what you were rolling with today. So when I a little bit about myself, I told you all I have 3 small kids, but my background is more in the traditional sense of education, where I went and I majored in education. I taught actually elementary school at the beginning of my career, which was interesting, being a 21-year-old male working with 7-year-olds, and I thought that's what I wanted to do going into education. And it turns out that teaching reading and writing is a lot harder than it looked. And it turns out the kids don't laugh at my jokes when they're that young. I mean, you know what I mean? So I had to keep on going up in age until somebody thought I was funny. So I taught elementary school for 2 years. I went to middle school for a decade. And that's why my hair is turning a little bit gray on the sides right here, is that decade in the middle school level. I love that age. It's actually my favorite age group to teach because they are all emotion all the time. They are coming into, themselves. Their bodies are changing. Their physiology is changing. Everything is changing. That's when I really knew that I had to do something different to meet their needs. Because all of a sudden there was girls, there was boys that were cute, there were girls that were cute. The teacher became not the focal point as the most important person in the room anymore, which was different than the lower elementary where I was at. So I had to do a whole lot of adjustments at that middle school age. And I actually taught 7th and 8th grade science for that whole time in middle school. And while I was there, I did a lot of things that, I was doing circles in class. I was doing mindfulness in class. I was doing, a whole bunch of good practices in class. But at the time, early on in my career, I didn't know it was, restorative practices. I didn't know it was repairing the harm. I just, naturally started doing things that I thought were helpful for my kids, meeting their needs. Over time, I got more training and I got more knowledgeable, and I was big into student-led learning. I was big into Genius Hour, project-based learning, things like that. So I really focused on building classroom community and building collaboration opportunities for our kids, especially kids to work with each other that did not look, sound, and have the same background as each other. And that was a big thing for me when I was teaching middle school. While I was there, I thought, wow, well, I love, doing these things with my students. I would love to impact a bigger audience of kids and a bigger audience of teachers. So I went and I got my administrator license while I was a teacher. And I went from middle school science teaching to being a high school principal. And that was a pretty big leap. I'd never worked in a high school in my life. But I had a lot of good knowledge and a lot of good background in working with, the unique needs of kids, and they saw something in me, and I got pretty lucky to get, my first administrator job, and they're not easy to get, by the way. It's definitely a lot of competition out there. So when I was a high school principal for a couple of years, and at the time, the Genius Hour thing, the project-based learning thing kept on calling my name. And I got to go and be a director of curriculum and instruction next at a school network or a school district. So I moved pretty quickly after I became an administrator. And while I was there, I wrote the book with my co-author, Nathan Maynard. And what you'll find in this book is you'll find a mixture of traditional background in education and how this works with kids in real time. But you'll also have his juvenile justice background, which is very important because people say, well, you can't do these practices with these kids, right? And I hate that. They call them those kids or these kids. They're all our kids, and kids have different needs. Kids have different, things about them, but they're all our kids. So it really gave a lot of credibility knowing that we're doing this in the justice system. We can definitely do this with your middle school, 7th grade girl who's giving you some trouble in class. You know what I mean? So after I was there for a while, we wrote the book. And when we wrote the book, we were lucky. We thought, wow, I have my name on a book. Isn't that so cool? I can't believe I got my name on a book. I thought that was like this cool, really cool and awesome thing. And it was. Little did I expect to be talking to you, 2 years later. And now the main thing that I do is go around and talk about the book and train schools and the practices.
I love that. And, I love Doreen. Yes, they're all our kids. We totally agree. And like you were saying, when I was reading your book, I was like, I did a lot of these things and I didn't know that it had a label or anything. I was just trying to form community. So I really like how the ideas that you and Nathan wrote in your book really do form community. And I just want to say, because I forgot to say this in the introduction, but Brad and I are going to be doing a giveaway tonight. When I read this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, the I'm Sorry story and Hacking School Discipline, like they are so close. So we're going to pick a winner tonight. All you have to do is comment or ask questions, and you're going to be in the drawing for a winner. And one person's going to win both of our books. So make sure to stick around. Oh my goodness, we have a fan, Brad. I love your books.
Thank you so much. And my question: Are you going to sign yours?
I am.
Okay, because if I sign mine, it might take away the value. I think my value will go down if I sign mine, but I still might.
You should sign it for sure. I think that it would be a good thing. And so my first question is, you said now you get to talk about it. So, but before, wait, I'm jumping ahead. But first tell us about what is restorative justice for those people who are watching, maybe they're parents or maybe they're new in education and don't know as much about this, but what is it?
So essentially, restorative justice, restorative practices, the school application. When we're looking at this, it's basically taking what might otherwise be punitive measures and simply kicking kids out of class, suspending kids, throwing kids into the system, and all these other kind of factors. Instead of doing that and punishing people, what we're doing right now in this case with restorative justice is we're taking accountability for our actions directly, and we're working towards making things right through repairing the harm, through building social emotional gaps, through building empathy. So basically, we're teaching instead of punishing. We're teaching kids what they should do. We're equipping them with skills that they need to resolve conflicts. Basically, we're building, it's social emotional learning in action, I like to say, when we're working with students, and we're building their social emotional capacity to work with others, to work with, to internalize, their emotions and to identify their emotions. It's just a bunch of stuff that we do in education. And what we like to do and what we did in the book was, let's not have a trauma-informed practices training. Let's not have a, SEL training. Let's not have a restorative practices training. Let's not have, all these different trainings. Doing restorative practices, if done right, is trauma-informed. It is SEL, and it is hitting the needs of our students. I mean, you could even incorporate applied neuroscience into our work as well, as far as working with students. So long story short is, instead of punishing, we are making things right and holding kids and each other accountable for their actions and taking those steps towards making things right.
I love that, Brad. And I know you said, and you even write this in the book, and I've heard other people talk about it, but like if our consequences don't match the behavior, or like if it's not a natural, you're not changing the behavior, you're just punishing them. And that doesn't change anything. It just promotes that behavior to keep happening. And so that's why I love what you've written. And it really does, there are some kids that come to school and they're prepared. They have everything at home emotionally that they need to. And there's other students that come to school and they need more of us. And we often say, like, well, I'm not their parent, but the thing is that we still have that to offer, that humanity, just that connection, that human connection that is kind of in a parental role. And we know that kind of going in, that's what we're going to be doing. But what I love is that it just keeps promoting, school community. It makes the parent important. It makes the student important. It makes the teacher important. That's what I really think is, I hate to say this, but important. Melissa says she has the digital copy. You could win a hard copy, Melissa, paperback. And she also says, I love that it's not just feel-good strategies, but logical accountability to help kids take ownership for their actions. And I agree, but it's also to help teachers look at their own practices as well. Would you not agree?
Well, when I look at this and I look at my lens that I view our students and how I look at them, if you look at this as a bunch of students who are doing things wrong and making my day hard, which is what I thought when I first started teaching, right? I thought, man, these kids are just giving me a rough time. They don't care about the class. They're not paying attention. The reality is we have to remember that they're kids. They are kids. They're not adults, and I like to say that to people I talk to. We have to view it as, and there's a very famous phrase that I did not in any way, shape, or form make, but he's not giving me a hard time, he's having a hard time, which is one of my favorite, quotes that you can find about behavior. But yeah, it's the adult mindset. It's how do I view the kid that is acting out? How do I look at them as that kid is having a rough time and needs support right now versus that kid is being bad right now, right? So it's all that perspective when you look at it. And as somebody just mentioned in the comments, it's not fluff. It's not just simply giving somebody a hug or giving somebody say sorry and that's it. You know what I mean? It's more complex. It's direct accountability for what you did in a restorative way. We're not going to do something extreme like you spill your milk on one table, you got to go clean 800 tables in the whole school. But if you did spill milk on the table and you just left, we need to talk about how that impacted the custodian, how that impacted the teacher that had to stay after. And then we have to start asking the student, well, this is how it impacted this person and this person. We're building empathy, and we ask them, how do you think you can make this right? Putting it on them so they come up with their own way to fix it. And it repairs that relationship they might have fractured in some way. But there is a consequence, and I want to emphasize that. There are consequences. It's just that they make sense, and they are used to teach and to build capacity. They're not used to just shame a kid or make a kid feel bad or make them have their tail between their legs. And in my opinion, I would rather sit in a lunch detention the next day than have to clean tables. You know what I mean? So it's actually, in a lot of cases, more work to repair the harm than it is to just miss recess or miss lunch.
Right. Exactly. And something that you and Nathan put in this book throughout is what you can do tomorrow. So it's not fluff, and the things that you write about are what you can do tomorrow. And I talk about what you can do tomorrow. So today, my daughter and her friend went riding in the neighborhood, and one of the neighbors texted me and said, the bear is back. And it was very close to where the girls were riding. But instead of them coming back home, when the neighbor said, hey, go back, the bear is right around the corner. Instead of coming home like they should have, they kept riding their bikes. And I was very upset. And I really wanted to yell at them, but I thought that's not going to change. They're just going to think I'm mean. And so I want to tell you this, and it's because I have this fresh in my mind. We literally had a discussion when they finally did come home. And believe me, I went out in my car for 20 minutes trying to find them. I don't know where they were. But when I got back home, they were already home and they were inside. And I talked about, what happens when a bear is in our neighborhood? Everybody gets the text messages. I knew as soon as they knew that they were supposed to come home, and we had this whole conversation, and I feel like it kind of saved our relationship for the day. It saved the day from being completely ruined. So I appreciate that.
I do have to throw out there that having restorative practice meetings about bears is not the most common, not the most common thing that I have worked with in schools. But you being in Alaska, I can definitely see that. And there is a famous Betsy DeVos and a bear
Oh,
fiasco situation going
please.
on here
Why did you
as
bring her
well.
up?
I'm,
People are going to
I'm,
be hating on us now.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, it works in the home. It's kind of funny is that I do these things with my kids. My 8-year-old, I can have more in-depth conversations because a lot of people say, the funny thing is a lot of people say, oh, well, the kids aren't old enough to have these conversations. And then you have people in high school saying, well, the kids are too old to take this seriously. And this is too kiddie and things like that. And the reality is that I use this in a high school. My co-author used this in a high school. I use this in a middle school, and I taught elementary school. And I even have my 5-year-old daughter who's in preschool. We're talking about how she impacted others. We're talking about what she can do to fix it. And I give more scaffolding. I give more suggestions. She'll say, well, I don't know what to do when I get mad. And I'll say, well, try one of these 2 strategies. Here's what I do when I get mad. Kind of thing like that. And then I can coach her towards that. And what can you do to fix the fact that you just slapped your brother when he made you mad? You know what I mean? But I'm having a conversation with a girl who's 5 years old, not even in kindergarten yet, about this kind of thing. And sometimes the 5-year-olds do better than the 18-year-olds when we're having these conversations as well. So no matter what age you're working with, even in the adult workplaces, restorative practices are the way to go.
Agreed. So if you're a parent and you're watching, this is a great book to have. It also was a great to help you with your own role of advocating for yourself and for your student in the school community. So I think this is, I definitely see how this is going to help me to do it, just to be a little bit better about making sure to have those discussions with my kids. Melissa really wants to win a book, but she says, I would love for administrators to truly grasp restorative justice. PBIS is not always done well, and especially not in middle school. At least not in my district. Melissa, I hope you don't get in trouble for that. Yes, it was scary. So I agree. Believe me, we've all been there. We know. So the next question, this is really, really what I wanted to know, Brad, but how has your book and the work that you do, because I know that you go to places, different school districts and you talk, how has it impacted school communities? Like, what is some of the feedback that you've been given?
Well, the craziest thing is I'll see the book pop up, on like in a print like one of my the people that I really love is Stephanie McConnell in Principal's Facebook group, and she's awesome. And the book comes up a lot in there and in other groups. And then all of a sudden somebody will chime in. Well, we read this with our PBI's team in our district, or we read this with our school, or all of our assistant principals in our district use this, or wow, this book really reduced our suspension rates drastically last year by using your book. So the cool thing is that we have such awesome administrators out there and school support staff and teachers that can take these practices and go and use them and actually make an immediate impact. When I'm thinking about how I'm working with schools directly, is it's so complex. Every school has its own macro and micro systems, right? We have the little systems, we have the classrooms, then we have the bigger school community as a whole. And what I find is that there's a lot of siloed excellence going on in schools, pockets of excellence, silos. The 6th grade teacher is using circles. The 7th grade teacher thinks, I don't have time for circles. Those are stupid and fluffy, kind of things like that. So one of the big things that I like to do with school communities is to get everyone on the same page and let them know that this is what the students need. We need to build connection. We need to build community. And once you have those things built and established, you can't just stop there. We have to feed those communities in our classrooms that we have, right? So go beyond the icebreakers on the first few days of school, go beyond those little get to know you activities, and now it's time to teach math. What we like to teach is, how do you do this with a restorative lens and restorative mindset always, and not just when I'm dealing with a reactive practice, such as a kid did something wrong, but how am I using the proactive practices in the book in a way that can touch kids, and teach kids and have kids work with each other daily. And that's what's important. So we'll go into a school, we'll do an analysis of where they're at, we'll figure out the temperament and mindset of the staff, we'll identify gaps like, does most of the staff identify giving students a voice in the discipline process is something that is not happening often in the school. So that might be something in particular we do professional development over, because how do you fix that, right? That's kind of a hard thing to fix in some cases. So we like to use a lot of data and analytics to figure out where are some spots that schools need coaching on, and then getting coaching in that area. So within the school communities, we look at suspension reduction, expulsion reduction, referral reduction, and that is great, but those are byproducts of the other practices. So if you want to tell me, well, we want to reduce suspensions and referrals, I'm going to tell you we have to start with connection and community. We can't just start with better discipline practices. We can't just say, well, let's just suspend less kids who punched you in the face and got in fights, right? I mean, we can manipulate data and numbers, but where we always start is the foundational level. And somebody a few minutes ago mentioned the middle school level and the high school level. There's a lot of great practices happening at the elementary level where the teachers are doing a lot of the, they're doing morning meetings, they're doing a lot of, skill building and things like that. But what I've seen is a drop off at the middle school level where we think, well, I'm a math teacher and not a teacher, right? Or I'm an English teacher, not a teacher of kids. So we work on that mindset a lot with teachers, and it's our job to teach kids. And when we teach kids, we have more time to teach content. That's the thing. We can barrel through our content and go as fast as we can because we have a test and we have a state test and we have all these things going through. But it doesn't matter how much curriculum you teach if your kids aren't with you. Your kids don't feel like they're connected. The kids don't care about the curriculum. All those kinds of things. So I would rather move a tiny bit slower and actually build community in the process. Therefore, once that is established, you can teach faster because you're going to have kids that want to learn, and you're going to have kids who want to be there, and you're going to want to have kids that care about what's going on in that room. So they're not going to want to harm that room. So, and that's another thing that I like to emphasize too is when students feel connected and they belong and they feel like they want to be there and that I care about the other people in the room and they care about me, that's when I'm not going to want to harm that learning environment myself because I don't want to hurt a good thing that I feel like I belong to. And that's what we like to teach as well. So when you ask how has this impacted school communities, it's more than just the reduction, suspension, referrals, and all those kinds of things that are just terrible, right? It's all about, wow, like our kids are happier, healthier, our teachers are having better times with their students. And that's what really drives me is we're actually doing practices and working with schools that are directly helping students and directly, this student that might have been suspended 3 years from now has had these teachers that have been doing these practices. Now this kid feels like they have the ability that when they get to school, now I can learn versus, we can't stop anything that happens outside of school. But when they're in our rooms with us, we can show them love and we can build community and group collectiveness and group efficacy and all of those things. So what do we have within our control and our confines? And we can make a bigger difference than we even realize as educators.
Yes, I love that. And I love that we're getting away from all the compliance, always compliance. Okay. Yes. Respect for it. Yes. Ooh. And Melissa says, right. I teach students content is secondary, especially at the middle school level. You only have them for a couple of years. I want them to know they are loved. Agreed. And, it sounds like I want them to be loved and I want them to have community. Those things in itself seem like we're being soft, but really those are the most important ingredients of a school community. And those are the things that students take away forever. Those are the things that stay in their minds and when they think about school forever. And then we're growing adults who know how to work through hard issues with others. We're growing adults who know how to contribute to society and community and pass that on to their own children. So it's not fluff. And I really do respect how you have things that teachers can do like immediately. This is not something that you have to wait and plan all of it. And you do give a blueprint about like long term, but you also give things that you can start doing. And another thing that I really respect about your work is that you already talk about the pushback. Once you put a strategy in there, there's going to be a pushback. When you're talking, do you get educators or people that give you pushback?
Absolutely. And now the Hacking School Discipline book is part of a series. There's hacking this and hacking that and hacking leadership and a lot of things. So the Mark Barnes, who's the founder, came up with the format. A lot of people some people don't even know that the book is actually formatted the same way, no matter which book in the series you're reading. So he came up with the idea to talk about the pushback in the book, in all the hacking books, because you're going to get a lot of hate in any new initiative you try. I don't care what it is. I don't care how awesome it is. If teachers have to do one more thing or add one more thing to their plate, even if it's going to make their job better and their life easier, they're resistant. And I was too. and I continue to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we intentionally have to talk about pushback because we know time is a component. We know that they're going to be like, well, when do I have time to do a circle? When do I have time to do this? And well, what do I do about a kid who who brings a gun to school? And we have a whole lot of what ifs, kind of things like that. And I'm going to tell you that this is a great thing, but it doesn't work every time in every situation for every reason all the time, just like any strategy does. So this works most of the time with most kids, in most cases. And when we look at this, obviously, if a kid brings a gun to school, that is something that is a huge safety issue and needs to be addressed in a restorative way. But it might lead to some out of school time. It might lead to outside therapy and counseling and things like that. But we immediately jump to the extreme cases, right? We immediately jump to the big, behaviors. So we like to talk about the biggest pushback we have is the time thing. And a famous Pam Leo quote, and I always butcher it, I've never said it correctly, is basically you're going to spend the time, you're either going to spend the time meeting the unfulfilled needs of kids, or you're going to spend your time filling their cup with love. So here's the thing, is that we're going to spend our time in education, writing referrals, parent phone calls, complaining to your coworkers about that one kid. They're going to take a lot of your energy, even if you don't realize it, that one kid's going to take a lot of your energy in some way or capacity. The reality is, if we front load with these strategies and we have that kid and we find out what drives them, we figure out what motivates them, we help them fill in some of the gaps they might have. We show them unconditional love. Yeah, you might have said, that you hate me yesterday, but I'm welcoming you back with a smile today and a pat on the back. And we're going to have a good day today, and I know you can do it, kind of things. That's when it really takes effect, is that we find that when people actually do these practices over a course of a long period of time, what they find is that their job actually becomes easier, because now, again, like I said earlier, now when I teach my lesson, I still have to be an engaging teacher. I still have to teach good content. I still have to have good pedagogy. But when that kid likes me and they know that I like them and there's a mutual respect, that kid is going to give me some effort, even on the things that are really boring, right? Like I taught rocks. I taught rocks. Like I taught seventh grade science. I taught rocks. And I did my best to make rocks interesting and things like that. But the kids gave it a shot and a chance. And some of the kids actually liked the rocks. Whereas if I didn't have that foundation with those kids, they would have shut down immediately. And what I found in this game, in this system, is that when a kid gets kicked out of class, the very first thing they say when you ask them what happened, that teacher doesn't like me. That's what they think when you kick them out of class. Then they come back to class and it's awkward. Like, to that teacher, it was not a big deal. They went home, they slept. To that kid, they have to face you again tomorrow. They were embarrassed in front of their peers. And that kid, they think it's a big F you when they don't give you effort anymore. The reality is it's only hurting themselves. And you know what I mean? So when I reintegrate the kid back into my room, or I didn't kick them out in the first place, and we resolve it and we fix it and we talk through it, and then we let them know we still care about them, and we work through this problem together. Now we've repaired that relationship. There's no fracturing, and now I've built in some social capital and some capacity with that kid. I found out the reason why that kid refused to move seats is because that kid is their freaking ex-girlfriend. And they do not want to sit by their ex-girlfriend who has a new boyfriend. And instead of telling you that in the moment, they refuse to get out of their chair, right?
Right. I know. I love that what you're saying. Doreen says, when we restore justice, we are also modeling how to deal with problems. I totally agree. And just love what Kay says, love, security, acceptance is the basis of it all. Yes. Would you mind, we're getting close on our time, but would you mind reading a little bit from your book?
Okay, cool. And I'll tell you that I have never done a live reading before in my entire life. So
get used to it. You're an author.
I read to my kids, but if I read them this book, it would be quite interesting. I've never done a live reading of my book. How about that?
Well, right. I'm glad this could be your first time. I'm going to hold your book up because this is a great book, and you're reading the introduction, correct?
Correct, because the introduction to our book, what I wish, if I were to write the book again, was that we spent more time there. We gave more credit we gave more credit to indigenous populations for the
Mm-hmm.
learning that occurred. We talked more about the school to prison pipeline, and
Yes.
I really feel like this is a critical part of the book that I feel now when I actually go and talk to schools about it, we spend more time here because it's all
That's
about the
awesome.
why. It's all about the why, right? Like there's great strategies in this book, but why? Why should we do these things? And
Right.
the reality is because what we've been doing is not working. We have been kicking kids out of school and it has never worked. We have recidivism. We have the school to prison pipeline. We know that if we suspend a kid one time in the freshman year, their chance of graduating exponentially goes down. You suspend them 2 times, you suspend them 3 times, forget about it. Now we're looking at below 50% graduation rate. So there's huge things at stake, and this really matters because if we don't do this work, we're going to contribute towards what's been happening for a long period of time, which is systemic. We're looking at oppression. We're looking at marginalizing our students. We're looking at a whole lot of lifelong effects that can happen by kicking kids out of school. So I'm going to read I'm just going to read a little bit of the introduction to the book, and it's, in my opinion, very important information to know as to the why behind it. All right, the introduction. Why do we need restorative justice in schools? According to the Civil Rights data collection of the 49 million students enrolled in public schools, 3.5 million were suspended in school, 3.45 million were suspended out of school, and 130,000 were expelled. Another concerning fact from the source is that Black students are suspended and expelled 3 times as often as white students. And students with disabilities are suspended twice as often as their non-disabled peers. Zero tolerance policies, which deliver harsh, predetermined punishments, are a root cause of many suspensions and expulsions in schools today, often affecting minority students the most. Removing students from their educational setting instead of using alternative forms of discipline has many negative effects, including increasing the likelihood that students will enter the juvenile justice system or end up in prison, often referred to as the school to prison pipeline. In short, mishandling discipline can greatly affect a student's educational trajectory and even more disheartening their life. It is our duty as professional educators to realize that within every wrongdoing is a teachable moment. Further, we must take advantage of that moment rather than throwing it and the student out with the trash. Every behavior is a form of communication, even behaviors that require disciplinary actions. Our responsibility as professional educators is to try to understand those behaviors and, simply put, begin to do better with our behavior management systems. We need to combat the disproportionality in our discipline policies, noted above, by examining and implementing equitable practices. Restorative practice is an emergent social science that studies how we can strengthen relationships between individuals as well as social connection within communities. According to the International Institute of Restorative Practices, all humans are hardwired to connect. Just when we need food, shelter, and clothing, human beings also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. The International Institute of Restorative Practices says that we reduce crime, violence, and bullying, we improve human behavior, we strengthen civil society, we provide effective leadership, we restore relationships, and we repair harm.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Some of the comments that were coming in when you were reading is Susan says we have to do something different because it doesn't work. Yes. And Doreen says, as a teacher educator, I'd love my students to read this book before they start teaching. Yes. Oh my gosh. I would have been, I feel like there's so much now for pre-service teachers. So I love that. And Kay says, if we keep doing the same thing, we will not get different results. So we need to switch it up. And I totally agree. I want to thank you so much. We have come close to the end. One thing I want to start doing with all my guest authors, though, is for those who are, thinking about writing a book. Brad, what can you tell us about your favorite part of writing, just as an author?
My favorite part about writing the book, first of all, writing a book is a lot harder than I would even imagine. When I started to actually see content, I saw 20 pages, I saw 30 pages, I saw 50 pages. It was just really cool because I started to critically analyze my own beliefs, my own thoughts, and my own practices in a way. And I even identified, wow, I didn't act. I started to write an anecdote. I'm like, wow, I wasn't. I didn't act as I should have in my anecdote that I was coming up with to put in this book. So I actually felt like I was learning. I was learning myself through writing the book and realizing, wow, this is something where, when I write this down, I feel like if I can just impact one kid, one teacher, in some way. That was what was exciting and driving me, was that I could take my experiences, put them out there to the world, and hopefully help someone. But the writing part was kind of therapeutic. You're kind of writing, you get in a flow, and you run into some barriers, you run into some writer's block, and all those kinds
Right.
of things, for sure. But everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has great things about them. Everyone has a whole bunch of great ideas. So I would encourage, if you are just getting into this kind of thing, I would encourage starting with blogging, writing those 800 words, getting some feedback, seeing how you think, submitting blogs, things like that, because there's so much institutional knowledge that is just sitting in the heads and the hearts of educators that needs to be shared with the world.
Yes. Yes. Amen. I love that. I agree with all of that. And I think this is great. Doreen says, wow, amazing, Brad. Thank you. I remember when I was a self-contained teacher, sometimes thinking the consequences my students were given by admin didn't match the behavior, too punitive. Oh, yes. Totally. Totally agree with that. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do want to do some giveaways. So, Brad, the next thing that you need to do, I'm going to be going up these comments and you can't see it, but when you tell me to stop, whose ever comment I stop on is who wins. Not just, oh, look, Kay's saying, I love this. She knows every time you comment, you are giving yourself some extra chances. So whoever wins this is going to get the I'm Sorry story and Hacking School Discipline, because they actually go very well together. I was so excited when I saw how our messages went. And you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to throw in a bilingual, a Spanish copy of El Cuento del Perdón. So you're going to win 3 books tonight. All right. So Brad, you know what
you
you
have a
have
Spanish version of your book, man. You're one upping me here, Melody. I have to say that is pretty impressive. I have to say.
Well, I didn't translate it myself. Nicole Biscotti did, so I want to throw it out to her. Okay, yes. So Brad, so keep commenting. If you are commenting, you're entering your chance. Do you know what you have to do now?
Stop.
Oh my gosh, Kay! Congratulations, Kay. Wow. And I was just starting. You were fast. So Kay, I feel like, oh, sorry, Susan. You know what? Now I feel terrible. Should we do, I know I want to do so many giveaways. You know what? I might surprise some people. If you can find me on Facebook and send me your information, I will probably send you a free book. Yes, congratulations, Kay. Congratulations. Yes. Brad, it was so wonderful that you joined us tonight. I'm going to put your information up here one more time so you can follow Brad. He is the founder at Teachers Goals, and I love Teacher Goals so much. I'm always reposting what they put. You can find him on Twitter at Weinstein Edu, the hashtag Hacking School Discipline. And it was a great discussion. I agree. Thank you so much for those of you who joined in and for those of you who are watching, because we sure had a lot of people watching tonight. And you are amazing. You are amazing. See, Brad, I could talk to people all night long on this. But this is great. Before we go, do you have any last words that you would like to share?
My advice is that we are going to be heading into a year unlike any other, because we've had the pandemic. We're going into hopefully more of a normal schedule. Hopefully we have more kids in classes and things like that. My suggestion will always be to start with the SEL, start with the community, and start there. And my other strategy would be is that if you're using any of the strategies in the book, start small. You're going to fail the first 5 times you try a circle. You might fail the first 10 times you try a circle. You might have a hard time getting buy-in from students, but these things do work. Give it time. And just like anything you've ever tried, it's not going to be an immediate fix or anything like that. So give it due diligence. And I wish you all a great summer, and make sure you take some time for yourself.
Amen. All right. And congratulations, Kay. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week.